Very good evening to you. You are watching the Hot Seat on News First. This evening we are going to talk to President's Counsel Sarat Jayamanna, the Director General of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption regarding the situation pertaining to bribery and corruption in our country. They have recently had an event here in Colombo with the participation of international delegates as well. We are going to talk to the Director General more on that topic as well. So, very good evening to you, sir.
Very good evening to you.
Thank you for being here with us in the studio. Now, sir, before we get to the event that you all had in Colombo last week, I want to ask you a few questions pertaining to the CBOC, the Bribery Commission. Every time we come close to an election, or even during the normal times that we're experiencing, like right now, we hear the Bribery Commission being mentioned by all politicos. Every politician at any point somehow brings up the Bribery Commission and says, we have lodged this many complaints with the Bribery Commission, we have done this with the Bribery Commission, we have done that with the Bribery Commission. But what happens after it goes to the Bribery Commission seems to be a mystery to us. What is happening?
I will give you that answer in step-by-step manner. It seems some of the politicians, they are very much interested when his political opponent is arrested and taken before the courts.
Definitely, yes.
Beyond that, I am not sure that most of the politicians are interested in having very robust anti-corruption system in Sri Lanka. They hardly discuss about any reformation.
Right.
They hardly discuss about any conflict of interest rules, any gift rules, or any procurement rules. They hardly discuss. For example, a preventive mechanism in government sector. We hardly hear from many politicians. Instead, then no one talks how the Bribery Commission can be strengthened. Maybe they might be thinking their votes can be increased by taking your political opponent into custody. I may be wrong, but this is general perception of the very average, very balanced critics in this country.
Mr. Jayamanna, now, but the laws in the country pertaining to bribery and corruption exist. So, isn't it your duty to actually make sure that whoever is corrupt or whoever is caught soliciting a bribe is put behind bars and the proper legal framework is adhered to?
Definitely, provided that every law, every expert, they are absorbed in the bribery corruption. For example, bribery law and the commission law, asset declaration laws, they were introduced in the 1984, 1988 and 1994. Right. For the last 25 years, not a word of these laws have been amended. In addition to that, for the last 25 years, we have been investigating exclusively with the police officers who have been seconded from the police department. They are very good. I certainly admire and appreciate their role. But they are very good when you conduct the investigation into bribery, when they investigate into allegations and when they conduct the raid. But what about the corruption and the offense of asset debt? For that you need to have a forensic eye. Only an accountant, an audit or an engineer, they would know the forensic skills, forensic strategies. Certainly we have never had a single engineer, single accountant on our roof. So therefore what I did was, soon after I came into the picture, I started studying and found out we need to definitely recruit these people. Right. But mind you, we are still come under the government regime. For example, if you want to recruit someone, we have to have a recruitment scheme. That is being prepared by the Management Service Department, Salaries and Cadre Commission, Public Service Ministry, the Commission and the Treasury. We have to go through all these barriers and get an approval for the cadre scheme. It took nearly 1.5 years. Now we have got the approval. Now for the first time in our history, we have called for the application to recruit 200 expert investigators. Not only that, we have to have a prevention unit as well. We are going to recruit 50 prevention officers. By now, we have, yesterday was tomorrow is the closing date. By now we have received, with regard to prevention officers, more than 10,000 applications. So now now we have identified this year as a year of transition. On the one hand, Cabinet has given us the mandate to amend all these laws, and on the other hand, we are recruiting those experts. more so, we are going to have a national action plan.
Right.
We have never had a national action plan, even for a house, even to a province, even to any organization. You must have a vision. For the next 5 years, we are preparing national action plan. We have held about 28 consultation with the government servants and the civil society. And this Thursday, we are going to meet the artists. This Friday, we are going to meet the professional bodies. So we have collected enormous amount of information, and we are going to prepare a national action plan. So therefore, we are very much interested. But on the other hand, we need witnesses as well. Unless you come forward in a bribery case, no one can be arrested, because you know we are 24 hours we are awake. If someone complains to us, we are not bothered who the person is. You know, about a few months back, we have arrested one of the highest officers in the country. For the last 60 years, I think that person was the highest officer ever to have been arrested.
Right.
Yeah, I was ready, and for that, a witness came. Fortunately or unfortunately, that witness is a foreign investor. So I am posing the question: the businessmen in this country, the rich or the elite, the segment of this country, are you prepared to come and assist us? If you are prepared, we are there always. We will go and catch the thieves. Mr.
Diamond, now when we speak about commissions in our country, yes, the government of good governance promised that the commissions will be independent. You have been given the independence to carry out your duty, and as you just mentioned, one of the highest officials in our country was arrested for soliciting a bribe in the past as well. But truly, if you are to honestly be candid about this question, how independent are you?
Independent, it has several different facets. One is the non-interference by the politicians. I can assure you, definitely there is no interference. But independence has other elements as well. For example, all other countries, with regard to monetary autonomy, the independent commission has the power to decide how much money they need. Right. They don't make requests monthly, weekly, the yearly to request to the budget, because your future cannot be judged by decided by the public servants. In other countries, all these anti-corruption agencies, they get a budgetary allocation directly from the parliament. Of course, you can be subject to proper auditing and accountancy requirements, but then we are free. On the other hand, in Sri Lanka, we are not making a progressive development. Now here in Siabok, it is not progressive development. We have started a jump start. That means we are making huge change within 1 year.
Right.
So we never expected this one last year. We have laid foundation, but there are so many things that never planned last year is happening this year. For that, if you go by the traditional way, the treasury allocates money, we would fail. Then by the time, it will take a couple of years. So therefore, we need the creative people at the right position who are sensitive to the needs of the society. And for example, this government came in on the premise they will eradicate bribery and corruption. And recently also at the particular meeting, a president showed his political will. And even the international community, they really respected his views. But even other persons who are holding important positions, who are taking decisions, they also must have that vision.
Mr. Diamond, with that we had to go into a short commercial break. Mr. Diamond mentioned the President's words at the Global Expert Group meeting on Jakarta Principles, which was held on the 25th of this month. We will have that for you once we come back. You're watching Hot Seat. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. You are watching Hot Seat. We are in discussion with the Director General of Siabok, the Bribery Commission as we all know it, regarding what is happening at the Bribery Commission and why is everyone talking about the Bribery Commission when they need political mileage in their political journeys. Now, before we went into the break, we promised that we will bring you the words expressed by President Maithripala Sirisena at the Global Expert Group meeting on Jakarta Principles held on the 25th of this month. Let's have a look.
I am hoping to bring Sri Lanka to the #1 position within my term. We see many shortcomings in laws and regulations around the world when taking action against corruption. For example, many individuals and criminals from our country who are connected to serious fraud and corruption are in hiding overseas. Our criminal investigations institutions face major obstacles when they identify these people and attempt to apprehend them. including the lack of cooperation from these countries, the immigration and visa laws in these countries, and the laws concerning residents and citizens of these countries have posed major challenges to us. In many societies, they only speak of the politicians. In certain instances, while we see politicians at the forefront, in other instances, we have seen public officials going beyond even the politicians in terms of corruption. When action is taken to prevent corruption, the corrupt politicians, public officials, and political parties all band together regardless of political divisions. They band together and level various allegations at those who are taking action against corruption, while the corrupt attempt to live as good citizens in society.
Mr. Jayamana, now the President mentions that there are people overseas who are involved in corruption, people who have swindled the money in our country. Now, as you mentioned, we are going in for a jump start in terms of the Seabok, and we can see a lot happening as well. You being here itself bears testimony to the fact that there is something happening at the Bribery Commission. Now, my question to you is from the other side of things. Why did it take so long for it to happen? Was it political interference? Was it the lack of enthusiasm from the part of the Director Generals that were there in the past? What was wrong?
I think diplomatic, I should not make any comment about my predecessors. What I can say is, after my coming, the steps that I have taken. You know, on my recommendation, President has gone before the Cabinet and got approval to amend the bribery law, the Seabok law, and asset declaration law. And the Cabinet has given another mandate to prepare a national action plan for the next 5 years. We are doing that. Now, with great difficulty, we have got approval to recruit 200 investigators and 50 prevention officers. In addition to that, we are very much involved with international community. For example, this particular conference that was held, that is to discuss the Jakarta principles with regard to independence and efficiency of anti-corruption agencies. You know, we signed the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Yes. And that convention clearly says you must have independence and efficiency. Now, Jakarta principle describe what do you mean by independence and efficiency. Why did we have this conference in Colombo? Because they have decided, we are very active now in this particular region. So now they wanted to interpret meaning of independence and efficiency and to have some practical solutions. So thereafter they will come out with a Colombo commentary. And during this discussion, we have learned a lot from them. For example, in other countries, they said you need to have proper budgetary allocation. What they say, at least if you can have 0.1% from your GDP, that is reasonable. A country like Hong Kong, they have 0.2%. And unfortunately, in our case, we have only 0.0005%. So how much very meager amount that has been allocated to bribery and corruption in this country. So that is why when we make a jump start, we have to have that particular sufficient budgetary allocation. Not only budgetary allocation, we must have the independence to recruit our own staff, because we are going to recruit the creative people. For example, forensic accountants, auditors, engineers. We have never had in our history. So in order to recruit, we must have our own scheme. And definitely our requirements may not be understood by the public servants who are at very important position. So therefore, real independence means we must have independence, and we have learned from those countries. For example, in Hong Kong, they have total independence. For example, Malaysia, we have now developed connection with Malaysia. We have developed connection with Bhutan, and we are very much involved in UN process. So likewise, now we have developed international collaboration. In addition to that, we need to come out with the prevention unit. What is the role of the prevention unit? In all other countries, a Bribery Commission has a prevention unit. They will closely examine and monitor the preventive mechanism taken by government department, and they will suggest each and every government department must come out with a prevention mechanism. Thirdly, most importantly, we need to change the attitude of the children, and from the younger days, we have to definitely inject DNA of good values. In European countries, you don't need to do that. They have from their birth. But in our case, we have to inculcate these habits from their childhood. Actually, that is next Thursday. We are going to Gaul, and we are going to have a meeting with 500 children. We are going to create integrity clubs. And through the integrity clubs, we are going to educate the young children in this country. Likewise, eradicating bribery is not the sole duty exclusively confined to the Bribery Commission. Entire community, they must come forward, especially the general public. They must always say to your children, and if you go to a government office, don't give any bribe. If someone asks, please complain to us. I think now there's a trend. People are now complaining. And if someone offers to bribe, I think some public servants, they are now, no, they don't accept. I think that's a good sign. I expect even to media to play a very proactive role in communicating this message. We need good advertisement. We need the dramas, the pictures, and communicate. So then only even child would protest against bribery.
Mr. Jayamani, you mentioned about the United Nations contribution for this fight against corruption happening in Sri Lanka. We have a voice cut of the Global Anti-Corruption Project Manager of the UNDP speaking at this particular event last week. We'll have a listen to that as well.
We need to keep the momentum going to fight corruption in Sri Lanka. The commission to investigate bribery and corruption is very new, but I think it's the right momentum here. The commission needs to be independent. And then the third ingredient, I would say, is the capacity of the institution itself. It needs more resources, more staff, more coordination capacity. If you look at international practice, we see data that at least 0.2% of national budget is required for specialized agencies to do their job very effectively. Strong public supporting, public backing, as well as political will is needed. As you know, I live in Singapore. So even for $1 bribery, you know, they can put you in jail for 3 months. Only the anti-corruption agency cannot be effective in fighting corruption. It's the right moment for Sri Lanka to do more.
Mr. Jayman, from what we can understand, Sri Lanka is now doing more. But we also know that when we are doing more, the media, the people tend to talk about the increase in corruption rather than the actions that are being taken. At the outset, I asked you what is happening when files go into the Bribery Commission. But we also know that the politicians point the finger at you and say, we have done this, but the Bribery Commission has done nothing thereafter. Is this statement true? Or what is actually happening if I file a case with you at the Bribery Commission?
If you are a witness from whom a bribery is asked, then and there we go into action. Even in the midnight.
There is no delay.
There is no delay. We go and catch. You know the number of the raids we have conducted, VRD. But sometimes people come out with just piece of papers. Those are mere allegations. Mere allegation taken from the newspapers and other media sources. We need concrete evidence, one thing. Secondly, still we can't divulge what we say because we have a secrecy clause. Section 70 we can't divulge. This is quite different to police. Police, whether there is evidence or not, every 2 weeks there is a drama in the courthouse. During the course of the investigation, the drama is enacted. You go and report to the magistrate what is happening, what they have done and what they are going to do. Why? They need the assistance and the support of the magistrate to update certain orders, like for example telephone records, bank records. Police, they can't directly go and take. You have to get the support of the magistrate. But in our case, we don't need. We don't report to the magistrate. We silently and quietly we do. And likewise, how many cases we have filed. And for example, after trial last year, we got conviction in 57 cases. This year we got conviction in 50 cases. This is record in the history. Unfortunately, after each and every conviction, I don't go before the media and tell these things. And how many raids we have conducted last year? How many raids this year have conducted? With regard to corruption, I know corruption investigation takes some time. We have 21 million people. For 21 million people, we have only 200 police officers. Take country like Hong Kong. They have only 6 million people. For 6 million people, they have 1,000 investigators and 220 prevention officers. They have 60 education officers. And you see the amount of resources that have been allocated by those countries. Now he said that at least you need to have 0.2% budgetary allocation. So this is why people they want only results. But in order to give the results, you need sufficient number of officers. Not mere officers, those who are qualified officers. So those are the challenges. I'm sure, I'm not grumbling. I think we are in the correct path. I want to have the proper and very steady system. I don't want to just file a case for the sake of filing, because I am a prosecutor. I have done landmark cases in this country. I know if I take a case without any evidence, case will collapse.
Yes.
And ultimately accused will go home saying, a court has decided I am innocent. Not that court has decided he is innocent. Prosecution has failed to prove the case. So we don't want to come to that situation. On the other hand, if we arbitrarily file a case, of course the Supreme Court can always issue a writ against us. And we are subject to fundamental right jurisdiction as well. And there are checks and balances. So therefore, just because someone comes and file a piece of paper, we may not be able to sufficient. Because this will be, the decision will be taken by 3 commissioners. And out of 3, 2 have to be former judges of the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. And the third person is a person who has wealth of experience. I don't have the power to take decision. I will carry out the decision taken by them. Of course, I am the chief executive officer. It is under my signature the indictment or charge will go. So those things will go under. Apart from it is my role to change the system. That is why already now we have given our full support to set up the trial at bar. Then 2 weeks back we have brought a law that would permit us to file corruption cases in the High Court. Up to now, these corruption cases were filed in the magistrate court. In a corruption case, you can give a sentence up to 10 years. Normally, magistrate court is very busy with other minor cases, vice cases. It doesn't have a sufficient time to look into these white-collar crimes. And you need to have a forensic eye also. And in order to have a forensic eye, so you must have that the semblance of peacefulness in the magistrate court. Normally you don't find that. Why? You are interested in disposing other cases as well. So that is why we have thought it is best that these cases are heard in a higher court, and it can devote more time for that. So likewise we are bringing changes. Another example is Presidential Commission of Inquiry. People in this country believe and they think we have the power to prosecute on the basis of the material collected by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. We don't have such power. So if we will have power, after we bring down those witnesses again, re-record their statements, how many years it will go. That is why we have seen this and we have made a proposal, Cabinet approved, legal draftman approved, then Attorney General has approved. It has now gone before the Parliament. Parliament Oversight Committee has approved. Very soon, I think this will come. So what is the effect of it?
So now where is that document? With
No, not with the Prime Minister. It is in the Parliament for the 3rd reading. Very soon it will come up in Parliament. Once it is passed, what will happen? We don't need to record. We bring those witnesses again. We can look at the statement given by those witnesses to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, and we can act. Of course, we have the additional power. If we wish, certainly we can bring the witness and ask additional things. However, we have to bring the suspects. We have to bring the suspect, read out the charge and record the statement. Those are, I don't think, those complicated things. Technicalities. But main thing is bringing all these witnesses to record the statement from the very beginning. I think it takes a lot of time. So therefore, we have taken certainly very positive steps. These steps should have taken much earlier. Now, my task is not to merely prosecute, investigate, prosecute. We have to set up the system for this.
Mr. Jaiman, with that we have to go into another short commercial break. Is the Bribery Commission biased towards a political party? We'll ask Mr. Jaiman once we come back. You're watching Hot Seat. Welcome back. You're watching the Hot Seat. We are in discussion with Mr. Jaiman of the Bribery Commission, the Director General of the Bribery Commission. Before we went into the break, I said I will ask this question from him. Mr. Jaiman, is the Bribery Commission biased towards a political party in this country?
Certainly not. I don't think at the moment there is any allegation like that. I don't think, frankly. There may be allegation, there's a delay. I don't think that anyone is saying due to political reasons we are taking this. I don't think that is there. To that extent, I think we have been able to create that particular environment. We are not biased. Bias is not the question. We are frankly struggling with, because in order to eradicate bribery, not only the Bribery Commission, the people of this country, the legislature, the representative of the Parliament, they must think of introducing new laws like conflict of interest rules. For example, if I am being a DG, if I come across a file against a suspect, if I had known that suspect previously, it is my duty to put down in file. Similarly, all other public servants, including the public representative, they have a duty in other countries to put down in writing before you take a decision, before you take part in any official activity. If you don't divulge, what will happen? You will be prosecuted not for corruption, you will be prosecuted for not divulging that. So likewise, we will have to introduce conflict of interest rules. In other countries they have. So likewise, not only in prosecution of the bribery and corruption, we must have other laws as well. So now we are in a process of changing these laws. For example, in bribery law would definitely include conflict of interest rules.
Would these laws, these new introductions, be backdated? I'm trying to ask this. It's going to be from that day forward.
Because because basic notion in law, basic fundamental principle in law, which is guaranteed under Article 13 of the Constitution, you cannot have penal laws with backdate. We have to have a law as prospective effect. Procedural laws, you can change the procedure, but the substantive laws you cannot have backdate. So that is why the struggle we are making. We are going to have a jump start. So I ask people to have patience and learn from other jurisdictions. Just to go to the website of even country like Bhutan, country like Hong Kong, Malaysia, you can learn a lot. And therefore, we have to introduce all these laws. For example, asset declaration. Now, this is 30 years old. What did we do in the month of March? We got down the experts from World Bank. Why? They have done research world over. Then we got down experts from Slovenia, then Indonesia. Why? They have developed their laws, asset declaration laws, and they have online asset declaration. So every public servant is required to give asset declaration. But at present, there is no organization that will be charged with the verification of these details in the asset declaration. In addition to that, there are certain lapses, loopholes in the existing asset declaration law. For example, in the present asset declaration law, there is no requirement for the president, the provincial council, and the relatives of the members of parliament and other politicians who act as coordinating secretaries to give the asset declaration. And in other countries, once you give asset declaration, you give only annually. But when you leave the service, public service, again they have to give. After leaving also, for 2 years, you have to give asset declaration. Not only that, within a particular year, if there is a sudden increase of huge amount of asset, you have to declare. How do you declare? Online you declare within 2 weeks. So thereby you minimize the opportunities, and it's a preventive mechanism. So these tools must be in place. Not that after few years, after the change of the government, you go after someone, right? In other countries, they have all this preventive system in place. So my question is, these things were never in our place. So therefore, we have to update the system, and we have already discussed with the Secretary of the Ministry of Information Technology. We will have an online system. We have almost prepared the policy paper with regard to the declaration of asset paper. And this is not changing one law. So many things are coming at a high speed, and we have only about 28 legal officers. This prosecution duty was earlier done by the Attorney General's Department. And when I started my career in the Attorney General's Department, my first prosecution was a bribery prosecution. Right? Now, in 1994, what happened? After the election, 2 months after the election, overnight, the duty of the prosecution that was carried out by the Attorney General's Department was taken over by the Bribery Commission. They never had legal officers. Suddenly, they had to recruit. My goodness, Attorney General is the most experienced, most talented prosecutors they have. And today, if a State Council joins the Attorney General's Department, they have a dream. One day, there's a possibility that they can become the Chief Justice, Judge of the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, Appellate Court, High Court, or else you can become a top lawyer. One day, you can go and practice. So they have a dream. So you attract the young blood to the Attorney General's Department. So now, suddenly, when you hand over this duty to the Bribery Commission, they may have wanted the prosecutors better than the Attorney General's Department. So therefore, they laid a condition. The salaries of the legal officers of the Bribery Commission should be in par with the Attorney General. But practically what happened? The salaries of the legal officers far down. So that itself is not only discourage, it affects the bribery anti-corruption regime. You want to improve the system, given to independent organization, and you taken away the very forceful prosecutors in this country from the equation. Of course, then you must have equal salary. And now what happened? After 25 years, Now, recently, salaries of the Attorney Department officers were increased. So, in that discussion, I also took part, and that discussion was taken place by a committee appointed by the cabinet. And there was a consensus that salaries of all legal officers should be increased.
Yeah, yes.
But unfortunately, the Attorney General's Department comes under Ministry of Justice. Their proposal went first, it was approved, their salaries were increased. We don't come under the Ministry of Justice. We come under the Presidential Secretariat. When we send the proposal, there was a blessing even from the President's Secretariat. There is no issue. Then it went before the Salaries and Charter Commission. Now, our proposal with regard to increase of salary is lying on the table of a particular officer in the Salaries and Charter Commission. So, what they are doing? They are the people who are responsible for the downfall of the anti-corruption system.
The
delay in anti-corruption system. And they are not responsible, no. Whatever after 5 years or 3 years, ultimately the politician will be held responsible. I think it is not the politicians who are holding vital position. They should be held responsible one day if people were to blame why we are not increasing the salaries of our officers.
Thank you.
So those are the things I think we have to bring before the people. Why people of this country, they should know what is happening behind the scene.
The Director General of CIABOC says a lot happening. The people also will have to be patient, and he points out the reasons for the delays in the Bribery Commission as well. So we will have another interesting guest like Mr. Jayaman joining us next week as well. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Chaturang Hapuaraj.
Thank you very much for giving me this valuable opportunity. And people of this country, I make a simple request. Don't give bribes. If someone is trying to ask bribe, please come and complain to us, and have patience, and ask the people's representative to introduce new laws, introduce new system. We have the technical ability. We need the support of the entire country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.